Chiefs Kingdom. Welcome into a brand new episode of the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. Today, I've got a question for you. If you had to trade one of these two, what you might call franchise cornerstones on defense, who would it be? I'm making you do it. I'm making you choose. Chris Jones or Trent McDuffie, who's coming off the Kansas City Chiefs roster in 2026 via trade? Let me know in the comments, and let's get into this. And you might be wondering, Jackson, why? Why are we asking these questions? Why are we talking about trading Trent McDuffie and Chris Jones today? Well, trust me, guys, I didn't start the fire, like Billy Joel said. This was actually Matt Miller. Matt Miller had a quote recently that's been going pretty viral on Twitter, and he said it in an ESPN NFL draft countdown segment. Excuse me, that's a word I'm looking for. They were doing a mock draft, going pick by pick, and Mel Kiper projected that Jeremiah Love would be the Chiefs selection at number 9. Smart guy that Mel Kiper is. That's a pretty good pick. And Matt Miller's response to that was to suggest that the Chiefs need to address the defensive line. And in trying to make that point, he said this: Chris Jones, he's getting older. He could be on the trade market this offseason. And that surprised me a lot, to be completely honest with you. That surprised me that he would say that Chris Jones would be on the trade market. It's not really something that's been floating. There's another guy on the Chiefs that's been floating in trade rumors over the last couple of weeks. And we've talked about him before. That's Trent McDuffie. But Chris Jones, bit out of nowhere. And Chiefs fans, they responded as such. They were surprised to hear this. Adam Best, who's the founder of Arrowhead Addict, he tweeted this: the Chiefs aren't trading Chris Jones. He's part of what will lure Kelsey to come back and give the big three one last run. His contract is incredibly difficult to move, and data shows he's still a dominant player on an albatross of a line. Long odds against this, restructure likely. I want to focus on the part about the contract, because I pretty much agree with everything else Adam says about why you might want to keep Chris Jones. But I do have to tell you, Adam, you're kind of wrong. I hate to say that. You're not really there on the contract end of things. Yes, it would be pretty disastrous if the Chiefs were to release Chris Jones. His contract comes with a bunch of dead cap. We can look at the year by year, or not year by year, but effects for the cap if you did it different ways with his contract. You cut him pre June 1st, you're dealing with a negative $19.4 million cap situation. So you're not actually freeing up any cap. You are inflicting negative $20 million in dead cap onto yourself. If you cut him after June 1st, which again, note that all NFL teams can designate 2 post June 1st cuts every single year, and that allows you to spread dead cap across 2 seasons rather than taking it all on in 1 year. And that would make the cap effect a positive $100,000 move. But when you're talking about the grand scheme of $300 million, that's really not noticeable at all. If you trade him pre June 1st, though, this would be the situation for a Chris Jones move. You're actually freeing up nearly $16 million in cap. So, sorry to contradict you here, Adam, but it is actually very much possible that the Kansas City Chiefs could trade Chris Jones. The cap just kind of lays that out clearly. If you do it before June 1st, which would be what other teams would want to get 2026 draft capital, or what the Chiefs would want, to get 2026 draft capital, you can do that and save nearly $16 million. Here's the catch, though. Any team trading for Chris Jones has to take on the rest of the cash on his contract. And that is no small matter whatsoever, gang. That is a cash infliction of $70 million, nearly 69.3 if you want to be specific, and also nice for the record. But let's take it by a year-by-year breakdown. So 2025, you're getting a $15.6 million cap hit for Chris Jones if you are the team trading for him. In 2026, that jumps up to $18.6 million. And then in 2027, you have him on the books for a whopping $35 million. Yikes. If you're a team trading for Chris Jones right now, That is like 3 times what you would probably want to pay him in 2025, much less in 2027 when he's going to be 2 years older and not nearly as effective. So, here's a possible offer for you. In 2026, you could get a 2026 third round draft pick for Chris Jones from the Chicago Bears. I actually didn't put this together, to be completely honest with you guys. This came from our Bears Now host, Harrison Graham. He was talking about trading for Jones even before Matt Miller was, and this was the offer that he put together, a third round draft pick in exchange for Chris Jones. I want to hear from you. Before I tell you what I think, I'm going to tell you, we're going to get to that in just a second. But what would you do if this was the offer on the table? Type T for trade, type P for pass. Let me know in the comments. Are you taking this deal for Chris Jones, or are you passing on this to hold on to him? And like I said, I'm going to let you guys know what I think in just 1 second. But first, I've got to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, and that is Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all your favorite sports, anything from basketball, baseball, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, esports, and more, including the winter games, which is actually what I've got my lineup going for. We're going with the more on Connor McDavid's goals, the more on Kevin Fiala's shots on goal, and the less on Sidney Crosby's assists. You can tail me on this lineup. You could fade me on this lineup. Whatever you do, just do it at Prize Picks. And when you do, you're joining millions of users and signing up for America's #1 sports picks app. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. And it would be wrong for the Kansas City Chiefs to take a third round pick to trade Chris Jones. That's my take on it. To be completely honest with you guys, I don't think that is a worthwhile offer for Kansas City at the end of the day. Yeah, you could use an extra third round pick. You could take that on. But I still don't think that's worth more than what Chris Jones offers to this roster in 2026. In 2025, he had one of the worst years of his career overall, if we're being honest with ourselves. This was a down year for Chris Jones, and he was still really effective. He was still the best thing we had going as far as pass rush comes in the defensive line. 70.5 overall PFF grade, 63 pressure, 7 sacks, and 19 quarterback hits to go along with an extra 36 hurries. The dude was awesome as far as pass rush goes. Yes, he's taking a step back in terms of run defense. Yes, he's no longer the absolute game wrecker that he used to be. But look at the rest of this defensive line room and tell me you want to move on from him, because I don't really even believe you. Who's replacing the production? Omar Norman coming off the ACL? I don't know. I don't know if we can have Ashton Gelati. Is he taking a year 2 quantum leap? I don't think we can say we can replace the production of Chris Jones right now. Derek Notty's certainly not going to do it. He's a free agent. Jerry Tillery's not doing it. There's nobody in this room that is going to step up and quantum leap in year 2 or year 3 or whatever year it might be for them and become Chris Jones for this defensive line. He is the best pass rushing presence that we have. I don't think moving on from him is a good idea because we've talked over and over again about how bad the pass rush was even with him there. You don't want to move on from the best and really only consistently effective piece that you have in that area. But let's talk about somebody else. Trent McDuffie. I know. I've hit on this over and over again in terms of trading Trent McDuffie could be an option, and I think it's realistic, and I think more and more people are starting to realize that. This tweet went very viral yesterday. Coming from Draft Nerd at Talking Ball 1, chuckling a little bit there. Just received a text, expect the Rams to make a big-time trade for corner. And I think this is kind of that time of the year where you get guys like this posting tweets like these, and maybe it doesn't mean anything, but you always see fan bases latch on, and immediately you're seeing the Chiefs fan base latch on to this one. I've seen so many of you guys tweeting, is this Trent McDuffie? Is this the move for Trent McDuffie? Is Trent McDuffie going to be the guy that the Rams are calling the Chiefs about? And I think absolutely it is. Even though this source is questionable, even though he probably doesn't have any real contacts in either organization, I don't think he's necessarily wrong. I think he's kind of shooting in the dark, but I do think he's right that the Rams are very much interested in making a move like this. And if they were going to do it, then Trent McDuffie makes a ton of sense for what they would be looking to add. A two-time All-Pro at corner. And I know there's a big concern from Chiefs fans. Is this not just the same situation as what we talked about with Chris Jones? Are we going to rapidly decline in the secondary if we move on from Trent McDuffie? I don't think so, to be completely honest with you. We had to play a decent section of this season without Trent McDuffie. He got hurt, and then the Chiefs shut him down, which, let me be honest, was a good decision. There was no reason to throw Trent McDuffie back in the fire in useless football games. But without Trent, the Chiefs stayed solid on the back end. Game against Justin Herbert didn't let him go off. The most passing yards they allowed in one of the 4 games they played entirely without Trent McDuffie was 228 to Cam Ward. And yeah, they did kind of get shredded by the Titans. But outside of that, they held Bo Nix to a bad game. They held Justin Herbert to a bad game, and Aiden O'Connell looked like the bad quarterback that Aiden O'Connell is. This defense got it done without Trent McDuffie. Christian Fulton held his water. No Williams held his water. Those guys can step up for you. Those guys will be here next year. They're under contract. And when you move on from McDuffie, you save close to $14 million in cap. It's almost the same as what you'd be getting in terms of cap savings if you moved on from Chris Jones. And it's much better in terms of trade value, guys. Here's my mock trade for Trent McDuffie. Chiefs receive the Rams' second first round pick in 2026. That's the 29th overall selection. And in return, they get McDuffie, who they are going to have to give a massive new deal to very, very soon. Which, again, that's another part of the reason why you make this move. Why I would make this move if I was the Kansas City Chiefs, because right now you need the cap savings that Trent McDuffie can offer you, and you don't really have room on the books going down the line for an enormous deal for him, along with everything else that you want to do over the next couple of years. I really think if you're weighing these two options, Trent McDuffie has to be the call over Chris Jones at the end of the day. But I want to hear from you before we get out of here. I know I asked you at the start of the episode, but if you haven't responded yet, now is your opportunity. After listening to both sides of the argument, where do you fall? Do you agree with me that it's probably got to be Trent McDuffie? Or are you going against the grain here? Are you riding with Chris Jones? You want to see him off the roster, type CJ? You agree with me? Type TM. Let me know in the comments where you're going on this one. And I will see you guys in the next episode of the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. As always, let's go Kansas City Chiefs.